everyone, and welcome back to DSS Break. It's great to have all of you here with us today. I'm Anna Annison, the founder of Data Science Salon, and today I'm streaming directly from our headquarters, which is beautifully located in the heart of Miami, just a few blocks away from the Design District. And we're here live every other week and to discuss the world of data science, AI, and machine learning. And we chat about unique experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. Today, I'm really excited to host Claudia Pereira Johnson, Head of Marketplace Research and Personalization at Nubank, for a deep dive into personalizing retail data-driven strategies from finance to marketplace. And we'll explore how integrating financial and app engagement data transforms online shopping into highly personalized experiences. And I'm really excited to dive into this because we're all customers, right? So I want to really see the use case that you have and how you guys are doing this. And thank you so much for joining us for this episode, Claudia.
Anna, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. First of all, Claudia, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you interested in data science in the first place?
Sure. I think it started in academia. I was finishing my undergraduate in economics, and I wanted to use data to actually be able to quantify some of the most complex models that we used. So I enrolled into a master's program focusing in econometrics. And while in this program, I started actually taking some PhD level courses in statistics. What got me really excited was that I could take something like really complex, like and hard to explain, like an abstract microeconomic theory model, but then using data and like real, customer data, for example, I could simplify some of the insights into one sentence, right? And actually show the impact of what was happening. That ability to quantify things and to quantify behavior is what actually got me really excited into this field. But only like years later, I actually went from more of the causal analysis to actually working with machine learning and big data. And I can tell you a little bit about my career, but I actually wanted to start with why, it got me interested in data. And that's a little bit the key.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your career, because I always meet such interesting backgrounds, so would love to hear yours.
Sure. So I was pursuing my master's, thinking of doing a PhD. I was recruited by an economic consulting firm in Washington, D.C. to work as an applied econometrician, so an econometric consultant. And I thought it was great. I got some work experience before then going back to academia. And I ended up actually never going back and loving working more in the private sector. But the work that I did there was primarily in finance and specifically modeling risks such as prepayment and default risk for asset-backed securities. And I worked there for 4 years. And then while I was towards the end of it, and in consulting, I think a lot of people feel this, like after a few years, you want to actually be part of the solution and not just the person that describes the problem and tells others, how to make it better. So while I was having a little bit of, this thoughts of actually wanting to be somewhere implementing some of these things, I was asked by Capital One to join their team in collections and recoveries and to lead a new team on intelligent monitoring. And this was my first experience leading a data science team. And, it was a team with data scientists and business analysts. And we focus on intelligent monitoring, automated anomaly detection, outlier analysis. It was awesome. Like the team went from monitoring like 30 credit metrics by hand, like actually reviewing them and describing them, to 3,000. And like, it was amazing. And that was my first time working with such large data sets, right? And then from Capital One, I was poached to work at Nubank. I haven't applied for a job in 10 years. Like I basically just, the power of LinkedIn and like network, I think it's what has been very typical in my career. But and then in Nubank, I was offered this incredible opportunity to start their marketplace. At that time, Nubank had only 30 million customers. I mean, it was already.
I know, I was about to say, I like that.
But in 3 years, we got to 100 million, right? And I saw the company going from just, a few core financial products like credit card and a banking account to actually a ton of different insurance products and payment methods, and now we actually have marketplaces, which is the area that I work on. I was one of the founders of this area. We had like 7 people when I started, and now we 10x that. And I covered everything there in the analytical space. So all the data infrastructure, data monitoring, product analytics, pricing, personalization. Now I lead a squad that is like a product and engineering team focusing on search and personalization. So our main of our intelligence comes from my team. It's really cool.
But it sounds like you were there to kind of oversee all of this growth, which is really exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
And we're learning together, like as we're growing, I was growing too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and learning and solving problems, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into these some of these little things that you guys were doing. Like, for example, what key data points would you consider when creating personalized experiences?
Yes.
Some important key data points.
Like one really important thing before you start on a personalization journey is to understand if you have scale enough for personalization to matter. And like, this is very important because if you have 100 customers, like even if they're super different, like, how does it really matter if one sees something and another one sees another? But for us specifically, like as Nubank, as I mentioned, like we started with 30 million customers. Like we currently have, and in most of them, access their bank account at least once a month. So being able to build a product, and we currently have like one tab designated to marketplace in the app where customers come in and they find something relevant. It's really important. And we have a different segmentation right across all the income spectrum. We have different regional specificity. So being able to personalize it was very relevant for us, so that customers come in and they see that there's something available. And the other part of that scale is you need to have enough stores for you to personalize, because if you only have a handful of stores, you have more space in the app than you have offers available. So it was critical for us to mature enough in scale for personalization to actually matter.
I guess quick question that I just thought of, what would be like the minimum size that you would need to be able to find data points?
I would do like some cluster analysis, and at the moment that you can see that your customers can be well split into 3 to 5 clusters, and that they are, they have similar sizes, I think it's worth starting.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Got it. Well, let's talk about how do you ensure the ethical use of consumer data, and especially in the landscape where privacy concerns are escalating. I feel like that's kind of the new, if we look at the content that we have coming up at the event, that you're going to be speaking at, that's a lot. I feel like a lot of people are concerned about this stuff.
Yeah, this is it's a hard and great question. So one thing that I learned at Nubank, like we say no asterisks for all our products. Like we don't hide behind the fine print. I think this is the most important thing, that when you're building a great product that customers love, to not hide behind the fine print. Like it's not a justification to write something really obscure in a message that customers are not going to read, like at the 7th page of a huge terms and conditions agreement, and then feel like that's enough for you to go ahead and sell the customer data, for example. Like this is not, this is my main point, like do not hide behind a fine print. So for us specifically, like, the other point is like understand your lane. Like sometimes there's a difference between what it's in the fine print and what customers expect from you. So if customers, for example, see like, oh, this is my bank, I have all my credit card transactions with them, they understand that I'm behind payments. So they're going to send me a message to help me refinance that payment. That type of personalization service, it's very well expected by your bank. So customers will take that very well. So what we saw in a lot of customer research is that to them, like it was very obvious that oh, well, yeah, my bank is recommending me like a cashback with Amazon because they see that I buy at Amazon every week. The connection of like where we were getting that data from, it was very obvious to the customer. And I think there's a difference there, right? Now, the final point is, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is to have really strong diligence on data sharing, and both within the company and with external providers. And I'm very lucky that like Nubank is extremely rigorous on this, like with really good governance, both internally across departments, as well as with third parties. So like specifically for us, like our sellers can say, hey, I'm interested in, let's say targeting that demographic. And then we can use our own intelligence to understand what that means and stuff. But even there, we often say like, actually tell me your business goals and not necessarily the demographic. And I will tell you which one is the demographic that I want to target, but they don't see any of that. So we don't share the financial information in that case. But we do try to obviously like get towards like use data to reach business goals, but the data sharing with external parties is extremely critical.
Yep. Yeah. No, thank you for that answer. That's a great answer. And could you share some challenges that you faced in integrating financial and behavioral data and how you've overcome them?
Yeah. So I think the first one is building features that are not obvious. Like, for example, the first time we started working on this, we're like, wow, people with more credit, they spend more money. I'm like, yeah, like that's obvious, like people that have access to more credit and they have been banking for longer with us, they're more likely to have an average transaction spend. And just like the first wave of analysis, like there were a lot like this. It was like very, very much obvious. And now we're thinking more about engineering some of those features to understand drivers of purchase behavior, right? And like some examples, like if customers proportionally on their credit spend use it more for discretionary spend, then they are in a different, in a different boat than customers that most of their spend are actually like basic needs, right? Or so you need to build that intelligence. Or for example, customers that have traveled abroad and use their credit card transaction on foreign currencies, they might have a different preference for imported goods, versus the ones that have never traveled. So trying to go beyond the obvious, it's like definitely a challenge. Like we do have a ton of data, right? But as everybody that has worked with big data understands, like the separating the noise from the signal is a big challenge. And then the second one is to more inherent to personalization. Do not like fatigue customers with repetition. Like for example, if I buy yesterday at Sephora, now everything I see is about Sephora, right? I think social media does that a lot. Like if you search one thing, now you're like followed by that same thing over and over again. So I would recommend watching out for that and potentially even like build a policy that corrects the model. So you always guarantee that you have a couple of recommendations that are based on past use, a couple that are some different brands or different products that customers should try based on similar customers that already tried it. And then something else that can be trending for the entire population so that you can get that emerging trends in without actually overfitting for that specific customer.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, thanks for sharing that. And, I think like I've definitely seen banks do this. And I think guys are getting better and better at this kind of personalization, So, and what role do machine learning and AI technologies play in enhancing features? I mean, we talked, a lot about personalization, but let's talk about a little bit about like the back end.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm extremely lucky because I'm standing on shoulders of giants here at Nubank. Like it was from day one when we started. It's a company that started as digital with amazing backend infrastructure, very fast data processing, very efficient usage and storage of data, and a culture for AI and ML. So in our specific case, like think of the most obvious example of personalization for a financial services company is probably underwriting. Defining for that person based on their credit risk, whether you approve them or not for credit card, how much limit you give them and at what price. That's personalization, right? But it's like probably the most obvious personalization case within financial services. The fact that we already had all that emotion, right? We already had that both in terms of like talent and infrastructure really made it easier for us to then translate the same tools and apply it in the different context. So I think, not every company is in the same boat to be able to start. But some changes that we had to, adjust to based on the different business that we're in. I can provide you a couple of examples, but we definitely got better at it. When I first started and we're processing credit card information, we used some fuzzy matching to understand whether the customer had purchased at certain stores, right? And we use millions of credit card transactions to do that. And then 2 analysts on my team had to manually review 150,000 transactions.
Wow.
Because we had a ton of very weird outliers for Uber, Amazon, and some other stores. And then we started looking into the data and saw okay, those are a ton of mom and shops, mom and pops shops from Uberlândia, which is a town in Brazil that was tagged as Uber. And then a bunch of things that were stores based on the Amazon forest, or just, sort of renaming things about oh, these are Amazonian berries or Amazonian woods that were tagged as Amazon. So that was our first approach, trying to categorize credit card data for retail, right? But and that was 3 years ago. And now we have a full department that does only intelligence of our credit card. They don't actually develop products, they only build intelligence. And they have already categorized all our credit card transactions for all 100 million customers for 10 years of history. So something that we had to do manually, right? Now there is a dedicated team that does that. It's actually outside of Marketplace, and they do it to power intelligence across all products. So we're actually very lucky that those were not concepts that I had to fight for to actually change the culture of my company to incentivize them. It was actually the opposite. It was okay, how can we get Marketplace to be as intelligent and advanced as some of our credit products?
Cool. And what about some emerging tech, or what, how has this, I think the most important question really goes back to the consumer, right? How has that affected the loyalty and the retention of your customers? And is it so what, why are we doing this, right? How it is?
Yeah, no, and I think depending on the product and business stage, you might have different goals. So to be very explicit here, when we first started launching the product, the main point was customer acquisition for that specific product, right? So we were in this large ocean of over 30 million customers at the time, but none of them had purchased in Marketplace before. And we're still introducing the concept of making those purchases inside your banking app. So for me, it was really important that customers landed on the tab and they saw something relevant to them. And my main, business metrics were unique buyers and new buyers. Now that we have recurring buyers and we want to start retaining them and are more intentional about it, we are working on loyalty and retention. And I think there it's really important to have this mix between product and data science, where you actually build different flows and different features for customers that are recurring. So for example, you can have things like previous searches, right? So pick it up from where you left, where customers can come and finalize that purchase or review their card. All those features, they come later as you have more habitual customers. And then obviously the cross-sell of new offers. So for example, if customers are always coming to our hub to get cash back on their local grocery store, for example, you can then develop models to cross-sell so that they can start buying at other stores too. So then you start developing those new applications. But when we started, it was first about the first buyer, so customer acquisition.
Cool. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And one last question that I have for you is, what advice would you offer young professionals or people that want to get into data science, machine learning, and AI?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, but I would actually say to start from the basics. I think there's a certain trivialization now on the term AI, right? It's something very popular. Everybody wants to grab a little bit of it. So I think there's a race to become an overnight, AI expert. So right. I wanted to share, obviously you need to improve your own productivity in your own fields, you don't need to be a data science expert to use AI tools. So if you have access to those, like, you actually should pursue access and try to do that. That's going to become just the norm, right? Everybody will have a co-pilot that they can rely on. So it would actually, you would not be able to compete if you're not using those tools. But those are not differentiators. And those don't mean that you can develop similar tools or that you can actually apply them intelligently. So what I would say is there's no way to go wrong actually understanding statistical inference, statistical learning, experimental design, causal inference, right? And then you can actually connect the dots and understand how to apply those different technologies, how to apply a different algorithm, and actually some of the blind spots you may have so that you can do it responsibly. So yeah, like, my question would actually been the same that I would have given you 5 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I feel like that's an answer a lot of people give, that you have to start because all those things have been around for many years, right? So that's what you should be going teach or learning first. So, but thank you so much for spending time with us today, Claudia, and for sharing your expertise with our audience. It was really great. It was such a pleasure to have you. And if you guys enjoyed this session with Claudia, is going to be actually presenting on the Beyond Financial Services, how to leverage financial and app engagement data to build personalized shopping experiences in person. In New York on June 18th. So I look forward to seeing some of you there. Yeah. And I hope all of you guys have a wonderful week. And thanks again, Claudia.
Thank you. See you in New York.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.